I decided to actually leave my room for once and make a video. I know, surprising, because if you look through my channel and you go ahead and if you had to watch every single one of my videos, every single one is me sitting or standing in this very room. But for once, I was very much inspired by Channel 5. If you don't know what Channel 5 is, it is a dude he started it, but now he has a group of people where they go around mainly in America and they go to different protests, different parts of America, wherever there may be some kind of event going on or there may be a big story going on, and they do some kind of journalism. And it is very great, the content that they make. And I was very inspired by these guys that I myself wanted to go ahead and do a video similar to what they are doing, but here in Australia, specifically in Melbourne, and got to do with the Australia Day protest. Now, if you don't know about Australia Day is a day that is celebrated every single year on January 26th, and it marks the anniversary of when the first fleet from England touched down within Australia for the first time, when the English fleets first made contact with the land of Australia. And the reason why this has brought up a lot of controversy over the years, mainly it's been going on for like almost 100 years now, that there's been protests about that and there's been questions about the celebration of this day, because it is considered a day of when the English fleet came to Australia and stole the land off the Aboriginals, because in time to come, the Aboriginals were then discriminated against. A lot of them were killed. And then also during the 1900s, mainly between 1910 and like, I don't know exactly when in the 1970s it was, but there was also the stolen generation as well, where a lot of kids were taken away who were Aboriginal, were taken away from their families to pretty much whitewash them. So it is very horrible of what like was done to the Aboriginal people. But at the same time, I think that it is great that Australia has a day of which they can celebrate, because stuff like that, it is horrible, but at the same time, there's nothing that we can really do about it. There's nothing that we can do in the past. It's the exact same with me when it comes to, you know, my great-grandmother. She was captured by the Germans during World War II and was forced into a concentration camp. God forbid, thank God she was not Jewish, and she was able to live out like the whole of the war and thankfully survived. She was, from what I know, because she was a very secretive person, she only spoke about her being a seamstress during the war, but besides that, I don't really know too much information. But when it comes to that, I'm just like, hey, you know, it's a terrible thing that happened to her, but we have to move past this. But I decided to go to the protests of this Australia Day, because even though I have a little bit of knowledge, I wanted to know what the people who are protesting there, what their thoughts were on this whole entire situation. And I wanted to come at it from a middle ground standpoint, where I wanted them to try and convince me that what they were doing was right. Because one thing that I don't agree with when it comes to protests is the amount of money that it costs. Because I saw a report from last year saying that it cost Australian taxpayers money up to $15 million just for one protest. When the pro-Palestine protests were going on last year, it cost taxpayers $15 million. And as much as I don't have a job at the moment, when I was paying taxes, I'm just like, damn, this is a lot of money that's going to these protests. So I want to know where my money was going. But unfortunately, when I reached these protests, I was not hit with an arms open welcome whatsoever. As in, like, I'm in the middle ground of everything. So I'm just kind of like, I'll like, you know, yeah, I'm more of like a, you know, try to convince me more or less of if you think you're like, you know, what you're doing is right, or if you think it's wrong, or why you think like the other side is wrong. I reckon we're interested. Yeah. You're not interested at all? Like try to convince me is basically what I'm trying to do, you know? You wouldn't want to convince me of like, you know, what you think you're doing is like the right thing to do. And like you think that if like what people are protesting against you, like what might be wrong.
We're not interested in making content for you, mate.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Just a petition. Is that, am I allowed to like film and ask you guys some questions? No, you're not interested in that? You can ask some questions. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Oh yeah, no, only more by speaking today.
Oh, okay, all good, thank you. I can't ask you any questions about any of it or anything like that, no? Okay, that's cool. So just by those clips there that I showed, and there was also multiple other people that I asked as well, because my friend was like recording, and I've obviously blurred these people's faces out because they probably don't want to, be publicized whatsoever. They didn't even want to speak to me, but there was multiple other people who didn't want to speak to me either. No one wanted to speak to me. There was people who, before I even asked them, I could even ask them a question. When I said, can I film you and ask you some questions about the protest today, they would ask me what side I am on, and I said I don't have a side. I am on the middle ground. I don't really pay attention to stuff like this. I don't really I care, yeah, it's bad what happened, but at the same time, I don't care too much. Like, when it comes to Australia Day, if the date had to get changed, I'd be fine with that. It honestly wouldn't bother me. I think that it's great that we have a day to celebrate Australia. It's fine. I think that it's fine to, be proud of the country that you were from, as much as all my family, my grandparents were immigrants and have only been here since after World War II. I was born in Australia, and I love the fact that I was born in this country because I find it an extremely great country to live in. But I also know that a lot of people just want to abolish the day altogether and don't like the fact that we even celebrate Australia. And I wanted to ask them these questions. I wanted to see that if what they were celebrating, they knew what they were protesting for, and if they had the logic that what they were being there for was the right thing to do. And you would think that with people who are going out and protesting this much, that they would have the passion to want to talk to someone like me, where I would even tell them, hey, convince me that what you're doing is right. Convince me that I should be here protesting with you. But none of these people wanted to do it. And it was even on the side of pro-Palestine as well. Even though I don't really care too much about what's going on in the Middle East, because when it comes to foreign affairs, it doesn't bother me too much. Like, I don't really care what's going on. Yes, it's sad and everything like that, and I don't want to get into it too much, because when it comes to the whole Palestine-Israel thing, I have very much kept away from that, and I will more in this video, because as much as there was the anti-Australia Day protest, there was also pro-Palestine protests going on at the exact same time. But no one would even talk to me about that either. It seems that every single person that was here just didn't want to put in a word. Didn't even want to say that you should join us. Join us here. Have this. Look at what we're doing is the right thing to do. And I was never condescending. I was never rude in any way possible to any of these people. I tried to go up to them as polite as possible. Maybe it's because of the way that I look. Maybe it's the way that I was dressed, that they felt somewhat intimidated by me. Because I have been told this previous times. Like, maybe you who's watching this video may not seem it. But sometimes if you see a guy like me coming up to you like this, there's a big chance you're going to go, this guy is, he's not going to be here for like all the good reasons. And listen, would I have gone against some of the things that these people were talking about? Yeah, probably. But it's in the point to try get them to come to a logical answer of what they were doing was right. So if they had to say something to me, I would then ask them a question against what they were saying so that they could then answer it. So it could make for actual great journalistic behavior. And if the opposite side of the argument was there, it wasn't, at least from my knowledge this year, at least in Melbourne, because I've heard that there was in Adelaide, but in previous years, we have had neo-Nazis protest against these anti-Australia Day people, which I think is completely stupid. Like I said, it's just as bad as there is far left people. These far right people are just as bad. I would have gone into them as well and asked them the exact same things and gone against what they were saying as well, because I think that it's good to come at things from a middle standpoint and get both people's side of views. And I would not have sided with either of them. Maybe they thought that I was going to make them come off as bad. But even then, if you have so much passion within something, wouldn't you want to get the word out for there? That's why this whole thing confused me. It really did. And it kind of neglected me, and it almost made me go against them, because it's I'm trying to have a conversation with you and you don't even want to acknowledge me. There was one person where this guy right here, he was only recorded for a split second before my friend turned the phone off, so there's not much recording of this. But after I asked him if I could interview him, he said that he had a line line coordinator. So they had this line set up for the outskirts of the protest. He said that he had a coordinator for this line and I should speak to her. The moment that I went up to her and I said, could I ask you a few questions about the protest? She instantly turned her back to me and didn't even want to speak to me whatsoever. And then once I went up to another group to ask them questions, I saw her in the corner of my eye start walking towards me as if she was going to fend me away. Another person at the start, when I asked him, could I ask you guys some questions? I want to know why you're here and if what you think you're doing is the right thing. After I walked down and walked back up and walked past him, he started talking shit about me. So it's like, you guys are protesting this thing. And you know what? You have every right to protest. It is Australia, it is a free country, and as much as it costs taxpayers a lot of money, you still have the right to go ahead and do so. But I want to know why you're here. Is that so hard to ask? No. And then you don't want to ask me anything. You patronize me. You be mean to me. You talk shit behind my back as I walk past you. And then you want me to be on your side. After this, I was deterred away from this. I really, really was. Because if I didn't have a logical brain, if I was just someone who was like almost tipped over the edge of being far right, this would have knocked me all the way far down. Without a doubt. So yeah, my whole experience, my first outside video of me trying to do some actual journalism. For once, I know I'm not the greatest and maybe the questions I would have asked wouldn't have been the best in the world, but I wanted to change things up for my channel. And it really does suck that the first time that I actually tried to go out and actually do something like this, it was met with backlash from people who didn't even want to answer my questions. So this really sucked. It did. And maybe if there's another protest like this within the future, I mean, pro-Palestine stuff, I don't really get too much involved with because it's like, you know, it's foreign affairs and foreign affairs outside of my country. I'm not too interested in. It's more things that are involving my country, which is why I wanted to go ahead and make a video about, you know, anti-Australia Day, because it's been a massive topic in our country for many, many years, especially I'd say the last 10 years, it's really ramped up more than ever. And it really does suck that, you know, I was left with a sour taste in my mouth that no one even wanted to further their point for why they were there. But that's going to be it from me. I would definitely like to hear what you guys have to think about all this down below. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Peace out.